All right, Eva, go ahead.
So all that says below the black is shh, because I'm about secrecy. So not missing too much.
That is sign that you actually found.
No, it's just a, I don't know what you call it, an overlay that I used. So this is an actual billboard from Oak Ridge. And as I was researching, some people were calling it propaganda, but I didn't think that was an accurate way of describing it, because propaganda sort of implies that you're speaking untruth or half-truth. But these signs, such as this one, telling the residents be careful what they write and say, was for actual security purposes. It wasn't just to scare people, but it was for the reality that the world didn't really know what they were doing here, and they wanted to keep it that way until the bomb was dropped. So first, General Groves I heard him referred to as the pinnacle of power. He was the only person that really knew everything that was going on and had access to all the different particles of the project. So that gave him a lot of power. If he was, thankfully, he was very patriotic, and he was faithful, but it could have been a scary situation if he had anyone who was encouraging him to not be loyal. But he forced or asked that everyone who was an employee to sign a form pledging that they would be secret about their job, and that even husbands and wives were not allowed to speak of their different jobs with each other, which I thought was interesting. He also pushed this idea of compartmentalization, which we talked a little bit about. The scientists resisted that. They did not want science to be closed, but the military thought it was necessary in order for people who didn't need to know not to know what they didn't have any reason to know. But Oppenheimer in Los Alamos, I thought was interesting. He was the exception to the rule. General Groves allowed Oppenheimer to have a weekly scientific journal published in Los Alamos for the scientists to sort of be able to understand what was going on and be a part of each other's projects, which I thought was really interesting and probably pretty valuable for the Los Alamos side of the project. This is my favorite sign that I found. What you see here, what you do here, what you hear here, when you leave here, let it stay here. So it's very catchy, but it also reminded everyone that as soon as they got on the road to Knoxville, everything that they did in their life was supposed to be obsolete. So no one was allowed to know why they lived in Oak Ridge or anything that they were doing there. So in a sense, their lives for 4 years were sort of off the radar from anyone else in the world. This was a really good quote that I found by General Groves. And my favorite part is saying that adherence to this rule not only provided adequate measure of security, but it greatly improved overall efficiency by making people stick to their knitting. So he was very clear that this job and this project was a means to an end, and you just needed to do what you needed to do to get to the end goal, and no one else needed to care about anything else, because it was a one-time deal. This is the sign that was on the road to Oak Ridge, and I thought it was funny. It says open to the public, but then the controlled area had to have an entrance pass. Just reiterating the fact that it was still a very closed city, even though parts that were public, most of it was very, very locked down. And these are actual pictures from security badges for the Los Alamos secret city. So there's actually a website where you can find the pictures for everyone who was an original employee, which I thought was really fun. So General Groves and Oppenheimer. So when anyone was recruited for the job, they had a rigorous background check that the FBI ran on them, looking for past crime records or Axis affiliations, and they would even go so far as to ask family members if there was anything that they needed further information on employees. And sometimes it could take weeks for someone to get cleared. I was listening to an interview, and a chemist was saying that when he was being hired by the recruiter, he was like, so what kind of chemistry? Like organic chemistry? Or he was like, you'll know when you get there. So I didn't know anything until I was literally in my desk doing my job. So the security badge had the picture, the job position, and the level of clearance. And the highest clearance was the scientist, and the lowest was just the day-to-day 9 to 5 workers. Not 9 to 5, but the 12-hour shift people who were not really understanding the scientific relevance of the project. And here's a Oak Ridge pass for a resident, which was just basically their profile to know that they weren't masquerading as anybody else into the town.
Just to enter my Elza gate.
For all of our springs.
Right, so you can come in
Just
through
anywhere.
other gates. So I did not know that. You had to enter through a certain gate. There were 3.
And then my last I thought was interesting was the censorship of the mail. So they didn't have individual addresses, they just used the P.O. Box 1663. So the only way to get your mail was to go to the post office and pick it up. It wasn't delivered to homes. Nothing was too specific when they were for the outgoing mail. So the location, names of coworkers, details of what their work was, even though most people didn't understand, they still weren't allowed to give details. And the numbers of people in the city were not allowed to be given out because no one knew the magnitude of the project. Outgoing mail was unsealed so that the censorship committee could read through it. But the incoming mail was not to be cut, which I thought was interesting because outgoing mail to overseas soldiers was allowed to be cut or blocked out. But Oppenheimer was a staunch defender of letters being sent in whole form, and there was a case in Los Alamos, I believe, where a lady had received mail that had been cut, and he actually went and fought for that because he thought that that was not private enough. But I didn't understand how it worked, but apparently a note was sent to the recipient of the information that was secretive, and I don't really know how that helped exactly because I couldn't find a lot of information on it, but I did think it was interesting that they wouldn't